The world hates change, yet it is the only thing that has brought progress. Charles Kettering. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your hostess, Shamiza Ali. Good evening to everyone joining us on YouTube and on Facebook. We would like to thank you for your continued support and feedback. Our topic tonight is accomplishments and challenges in the education sector. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, Guyana, and the Caribbean. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh.
Very much. Welcome to everyone.
Our panelists are Mahindra Hariraj and Dr. Ganga Ramdas. Welcome, gentlemen. Good evening to you.
Thank you,
Good evening, Shamiza.
Shamiza.
She is an attorney at law, formerly attached to the Legal Aid Clinic. She was elected to Parliament in 2006 with the portfolio of Minister of Human Services. She is presently the Minister of Education. Please welcome the Honorable Priya Manickchand. So, Dr. Tara, I believe we're having a little bit of a technical issue with Minister Manickchand at this point. Once we have her up and running, we can go ahead. But in the meantime, do you have anything that you would like to ask the panelists or you guys would like to discuss while we work on getting her back with us?
Well, I guess so. There are many things happening in Ghana now. As you know, first of all, I want to extend our best wishes to everyone on this new year. This is our first program for the year, I think. And secondly, this will be a very challenging year, not only for Guyana, but many other countries in the world, because the aftershock of COVID, the supply chain problem, drought, famine, etc. So the challenges will be formidable, and probably Dr. Ganga and Professor Mahindra can offer a quick view on that before we proceed to the education sector proper.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Dr. Ramdas. My apologies.
Yeah, our labor requirements are undergoing changes, massive changes, as we move resources from the non-oil sectors into the oil sectors. So this would present both opportunities and challenges for everyone, the educators especially, and then you have the graduates from the various institutions. They would be looking forward to being hired in some of the related fields or to become entrepreneurs in other sectors as economic growth, which is phenomenal, as that goes way up over 40%. It will present more opportunities, and it will be good.
Dr. Ramdas, my
Yes,
apologies for interrupting you, but the minister is back with us. I would love for us to get right into it.
great.
Okay,
There you are.
can you hear? Yeah,
Can you hear us?
I am. I'm hearing you.
yeah,
Good evening.
we,
I
Perfect.
hope you
miss
can
you.
hear me.
Okay, we thank you very much for appearing in this program. I know the notice was not that too long, but there are many things we want to discuss with you tonight. At a broad level, I don't particularly like the word accomplishments. Probably you can speak in terms of goals are set out and how much you achieve, and the challenges, etc. But first, before we dig into it, I want to ask you something. Since the last time we had you, um, we never had the opportunity to ask you this question or for you to elaborate on it. I don't know if you have the data, but if you can tell us a little about the school construction program, how far you have gone with that.
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Right. So good night again. I'm very sorry about the little break just
Mhm.
now. I'm very glad to be here. Happy New Year to all of you and to your families and to everyone watching us.
Same to
Uh,
you.
so I'm glad you started off with school construction. Guyana achieved universal primary education, and this is measured by the UN's Millennium Development Goal measurements, where they wanted to make sure everywhere around the world we had gotten access to primary school. So we had achieved that in a while now in the 2000s. And the big effort is to achieve universal secondary education. That means everywhere across Guyana, children could access secondary education. So that's the big push right now. We are not there as yet, but we are strategically and actively and very focused on getting there, which means we actually have to build out schools. And in some places, it's not only building schools, it's um, building teachers' quarters because there are no teachers in the school, in the village, in the areas. In some places, it's giving transportation so that children could get from their villages to the schools. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now. Um, we believe strongly that with this push, what we're going to see is within the next 4 years, there will be universal secondary education in the country. Now, what that means is that every child is going to be able to access a secondary school, and we will have far more equity. We're going to be able to very easily place children closer to their homes and then try to make sure quality across the schools are equal. Um, so far, in Region 2, we're very close. We have one school coming in, finishing shortly, I hope. Region 3, we need two more schools. Region 1, to go back from the top, we actually need to build three more schools, one at Osororo, one at uh, Waramuri, and one at another location, even as we build out Northwest Secondary, which we're going to sign the contract for tomorrow. Um, Region 3, we need two more schools, one at Tushin and one in the on the West Bank side. Region 4, we need to finish Good Hope, which started under the APNU, finish Yarra Cabra, which is going to come in next year. Well, this year, I forgot in 2023, and then begin to build Providence. Region 5, where we should be okay. We're reconciling that right now. Oriala. Region 7, we have to put another school down in the Upper Mazaruni. That will happen in Jawala. Region 8, we're extending two dorms because the schools are big enough, but there's not enough dormitory space. Region 9, we have to put a school down. We are beginning to build a school in Karasabai and one at Morawa now, which is deep south. Region 10, we're fine. We have to do some repairs and extensions across the system. So it's a huge civil works program that we have to work to make sure it comes in on time. We have challenges. Civil works generally have challenges, and so we're gonna have to battle with those challenges in simultaneous regions to get that done.
So, do you have any schools under construction right now in the process?
Yes. So we have Stella Maris, which is in which a primary school in Georgetown. St. Rose's, it's that was broken down under APNU. It wasn't rebuilt. We're rebuilding it, and it's going to finish. Um, it's going to finish shortly. I think June of this year. Yarra Cabra is scheduled to finish in May of this year. Bishop's High is being extended. Queen's College is being extended. North Farmville, there was a fire that took the most of the school down. That's being rebuilt. Northwest Secondary, there was arson that destroyed the entire school. All of that's being rebuilt. We signed that contract with the contractor tomorrow. East Romveld is being extended. St. Winifred is being extended. Linden dormitories are being extended. We're going to be building back St. Mary's, St. George's, a brand new school at Turkine. So it's a huge civil works program that we have going.
Okay, let me just seek this other clarification. I know in the past St. Rose's and Stella Maris was privately owned. Is still privately owned?
No, we don't have. These are all public schools now.
Oh, these are all public schools. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. The and you're saying that most of these schools are listed. You scheduled a year end or next year, next 2 years. All the time.
12 to 14 months, sometimes 16 months, depending on what the extent of the building and how big it is. But so yeah, that's how we are. Most of them. So Yara Cabra comes in May. Northwest will come in 14 months hence from tomorrow. Uh, Good Hope will have for that's on the East Coast. We'll have for September this year. They finish in I think June. North Rheinveld is scheduled to finish by September of 2023. East Rheinveld is scheduled to finish 5 months from December. St. Winifred's 5 months from December gone, so around May. So many schools will be finished for this year coming. And some will begin construction this year and finish next year.
And you have a complement of teachers to serve in those schools.
No,
Yeah.
not as yet. Right. Well, we'll have teachers, whether they're fully trained is a different matter. So we are embarking on making sure 100% of our teachers are trained before the next 4 years are up, and that we have a larger complement. So usually we are able to graduate just about 535 teachers every year, but we've just expanded the college so we would be able to graduate as many as want to learn. And so we have actually admitted into the college a couple thousand so far already. So we'll have not only quantitatively more teachers, but qualitatively they'll be better trained.
I was doing this teacher. One thing that struck me was in the nursery level, there are hardly any males who are teachers, less than
Well,
1%.
yeah.
I wonder why. You have an explanation for that?
Well, nursery is very small children, so it might take a little bit more. Men are not known. I know there's some great fathers out there to be nurturers and childcare people from that early. So, I mean, at nursery, we're still sometimes helping to change, use the bathroom and feed and so on. But generally, there's a paucity of male personnel in the teaching service, not only here in Guyana but across the world. It's something that has been noted. We want to make sure people have used various reasons. I'm seeing now far more interest from men, and I'm very glad about that. But it's chicken and egg. So across the world, we've graduated less boys matriculating from high school. And so you'll have less boys getting into the tertiary institutions like training colleges and university and so on. And then you have some of the other practical issues about earning capacity and so on. So it's a worldwide issue that hasn't missed us here in Guyana.
All right. Just curiosity, I ask. Okay, I pass over to Professor Mahendra.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Taran. Good evening, Minister Manickchand. It's really a pleasure having you on the program, and wish you and all the viewers a happy new year. Mr. Manickchand, there has been a massive investment in the education sector and has been a focus of the PVP government. And I know there is, as you outlined, investment in the infrastructure needs in the education sector. Can you speak specifically about additional investment the ministry is making in technology? One that came up, I was having a conversation with a colleague in maybe foreign language investment to have in the classroom, and then our most critical and valuable investment. What investments or plan is there for teachers in salary, in also offering them training to utilize technology in the classroom? And you spoke about some of that already.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we're modern and relevant. If COVID taught us something, it well, we got two very solid lessons during COVID. One, that face-to-face education remains the premier way of delivering education. So we had all these dreams prior to COVID about um, persons studying online and all of that. And while so the first lesson we learned is that the premier means of delivery, even in the most developed countries where internet was not a problem and devices was not a problem, or amongst communities where those issues were not challenges, we learned very forcefully as a world that face-to-face education remains the premier way of educating. What we also learned was that there is a place of for um, technology in classrooms and a very valuable place. And so while face to face is the premier way of delivering and receiving education, there is a very clearly laid out place for technology in the delivery of education and particularly in the delivery of mass education and distance education. And so Guyana had begun to move before. The first smart classroom we had was in 2014 at the North Randville Secondary School, which got destroyed by fire last year. Um, and that we have multiplied, nothing else, no other classrooms were built in the 5 years that we were out. And then from the time we came in 2020 to now, we have put smart classrooms in region 2, 3, 6, 10. The idea is to have a smart classroom in every school. What we would like to do is to make sure we can utilize every means of distance education. Now, something people don't really know, and we haven't spoken enough about it, is we have put in the last 2 years, 96% of all Amerindian and hinterland communities have been given access to the Guyana Learning Channel. We've given them television sets, a satellite, as well as solar power. That means we were able to deliver on the television channel, one that is dedicated to teaching and learning. And we've just expanded the channel. We now have 6 channels. Education to communities who hitherto couldn't access education. So we've just put CPC, that is the Sierra Potter College of Education course, where we're teaching on the TV so that these communities could receive that teaching. We also started Edu Radio, which is a radio channel dedicated to teaching and learning and education. Nothing else happens there but education programs. And we have that again is something that's very, very useful for communities that can't access anything else. So technology, we learned very forcefully the value it has and can play, and we're not going to let that lesson go to waste, which is why there has been a vigorous and robust effort to make sure we can offer different means of distance education to communities all across Guyana.
Any investment in foreign languages in the classroom, and more specifically, the last part of that, what investment does a ministry have to around teachers, maybe pay, different package, training, etc.?
Yeah, so foreign language, what we want to do, what we're trying to work towards is to have every child exit high school with exposure to a foreign language, at least one, a TVET subject, a musical instrument, strong sense of volunteerism, and a sport. So, in addition to all the other academic work, we want to see and produce rounded students who can not only entertain and use to make the country beneficial, but also the tools that those exposures would give them as individuals to function in the world. Um, there's a serious lack of foreign language teachers. So, what we're currently exploring is how we could invite persons who know the language and have an interest in those languages to come on and teach part time, even as we try to navigate the very poor part time salary offering. So, we're working that out right now. Teacher salaries are being looked at. That is not something above the pay grade of the minister. It's usually looked in a more holistic way. The president has been clear. Everybody is going to benefit from Guyana's resource boom, but he's also clear that he has to do it in a fair way. Police and nurses were earning significantly less than teachers, and he wanted to fix. So I think he's fixing those anomalies in stages. Um, so recently we addressed the salaries, in some cases raised by 70 something percent of nurses, of policemen in different and women in different categories. Um, he has said the teachers are going to be addressed. A trained graduate teacher earns beginning as an entrance level salary, entry level salary. It's about $180,000, which is significantly more than the other categories of trained professionals earn. So I think that is the effort right now to make sure the people who earn the least are addressed first.
Thank you.
I,
Just,
I
just quickly,
before
Dr. Tara, can you
go
the one laptop program, has the government resumed that? I know that the last government had discontinued significant programs that was facilitating the education sector. Where is that?
So one laptop per family was a Barjagdeo program that started under his presidency, where the idea was to have um, every home at least with a device in it, and then working to hook them up to the internet and all that that would bring. Unfortunately, the AP and UFC had crashed that program, completely abolished it, and replaced it with nothing. From then to now, though, in the intervening 7 years, what we know is that many homes already have devices. So we're not too certain how useful an OLPF kind of program would be at this stage. The effort would be more to make sure communities that are far flung are connected. And we're doing that through hubs, and the Prime Minister's office is trying to connect through the National Data Management Authority the internet to communities that never had it before, and then in a way that the whole community could come out and use that service. Um, we have given entire schools and levels tablets because we were trying, for example, Sand Creek. We gave all the fourth formers and fifth formers tablets, and they have a smart classroom. So a teacher in Georgetown, if they don't have a math teacher or a particular subject, could actually stay in the smart classroom here in Georgetown and teach them there in that class, and in that in a totally different region, totally different geographic location. But we have not begun again the one laptop per family. No.
Thank you.
all right, I just want to follow up on a quick question. When I visited your ministry about 3 weeks ago, I was told that you established a migrant unit and they have already begun to teach a number of classes in Spanish, and you expect to double that in this year.
Right. So what we found was there are a lot of children, school-age children, who have come into the country from different countries. And while we have migration policies and are dealing with that from different ministries in particular ways, strictly as a humanitarian effort, we want to make sure the children, while they are here, are receiving education that is meaningful to them. A lot of the kids can't speak English, and so we have done literature and have made resources where they can education would be meaningful to them in their language, and we're trying to accommodate them as far as we can in different ways. For example, have a program on a device that could translate exam papers into their language and have them able to sit those assessments and take those exams. We've seen some of the children last year, or is it this year? A migrant child was in the top 10 for NGSA. So we've seen some really good results, which is expected. once you educate children, you'll see results. And so that's the effort. Now, we've seen a lot of settlement in Region 3 and Region 1. So those are the areas that have received the most input from us.
But you'll have a further challenge because children are expanding, and we need really to expedite the foreign language part of it in English. Because it
Well,
also, I checked, was similar 40 students you already have.
in one region, yeah, we have 700 and something in Region 3. It's difficult to teach in Spanish because we have 740, but divided among so many schools that you have maybe one in a classroom, one on a whole level, that kind of thing. So we have to do the best we can. This is not new to various countries where new languages are introduced. So we're trying to do that. We have established a migrant unit to be able to deal with this.
Okay, one final question. Is there provision under the Gold Scholarships scheme where a person who knows English wants to study Spanish, can they get a gold scholarship to do that?
Yes. So the gold scholarships, let me just explain that a little bit. The scholarship is about government paying for persons, but the programs offered, the academic programs offered, are actually programs that are already established at various renowned universities in the world, from Europe and India and the West Indies and so on. And so whatever programs they have that we can access that is online, because that's the whole program, Guyana Online Academy of Learning. It has to be a program you can do fully online, would be available to persons who want to do that. The various universities have their eligibility requirements. So once you meet that requirement and meet our threshold for a scholarship, you'll get a scholarship. But we've gone further. We've set a goal that if you don't meet the threshold for a scholarship, for example, you're very wealthy and you can't get a scholarship from us because there are these hundreds of people who don't earn as well as you do, then you can pay for it yourself. And we've negotiated a significantly lower price for the students who will not benefit from the scholarship. So we have over 2,000 teachers, for example, studying on the Gold Scholarship program, doing various things: special education needs, languages, early childhood, literacy programs. And the programs range from certificates to PhDs. So you have certificates, degrees, master's programs, and PhDs, like I said, at universities around the world. So once the university is offering foreign language as a specialty online, as a subject that can be taken online, then it would be something that we would be happy to do.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ganga.
Good evening, Honorable Minister Manickchand. I'm particularly interested in the supply of teachers. Uh, can you comment on the flow of teachers from the University of Guyana or high schools who go back to teach in the high schools?
So we used to have at the university, the trained teacher certificate comes from the Cyril Potter College of Education. That's a teacher training college. You used to have to do 4 years there and then go off to UG, 3 years there and go off to UG for another 4 years to do a degree. And then we had a second look at that. And we now have teachers doing 2 years at the Cyril Potter College of Education, 2 years of training. They get an associate degree there and then go off to the University of Guyana's education faculty and finish the degree off there. So it's now cut down to 4 years instead of 7. So when we went online, we had to get the University of Guyana to also go online with us, so that if we're training 3,000 at the Cyril Potter College of Education, the university can take off 3,000 persons. That has done several things. Before, only a certain number, a very limited number of teachers could go to get trained because they were actually physically coming out of the classroom. And so a school could only release two at a time. So teachers could spend their entire lives waiting to be trained because their quota was already expended, or this subject is needed. Now, with the opening up of this online education, everybody could train, regardless of what you're training in, and regardless of how many persons at the school. So we literally have an entire schools getting trained. um, the hinterland populations are the ones that are going to benefit the most. Hitherto, what we had was a very poor showing percentage wise of teachers in the hinterland who were trained. So, and then that has its own domino effect. You're more likely to get a trained teacher to produce better students. I mean, I've seen untrained teachers do very well, but you are more likely to get really good results from students if teachers are trained. So we have our trained teachers in these communities teaching students who then have to come and pass and matriculate so that they can get into the college. And that was a little problematic. So those communities have the least number of trained teachers, and you see the correlation in exam results at both international and local exam results. And so you're going to see far more, a larger number numerically. We are able to accept 4,000 teachers in the college, whereas it was only 500 before. And then now we've actually mandated, we've said to teachers, if you are in the system, you have to go and get trained. So we're going to have 100% of far more teachers trained in Guyana in the next 2 to 3 years.
In the secondary school system, how do you supply those teachers, and what are the minimum requirements to teach in the secondary school?
So we're saying for everybody now you have to get trained. So we can put people in the school as untrained teachers, but they have to begin training if they're to stay in the schools. The secondary school, the number of secondary school teachers trained right now ranges between 72 and 75%. In a couple of years, it'll be 100% of more teachers, like a larger number, trained 100%. It's not secondaries. We see a large number going to primary. Secondary, people have to specialize and qualify. So all teachers have to get at least 5 subjects with mathematics and English. But if you want to teach a particular subject, you had to have had exposure to that subject and do well. So it's a combination, and would be, I don't want to give you the exact combination right now. For example, if you want to be a science teacher in high school, you would have had to do the sciences as well as math and English and pass those at the CSEC or CAPE level. If you want to do um, physical education, then you might have had to have exposure to physical education, perhaps biology. So it's a different combination for different types of specializations if you're talking about eligibility.
Yeah, my interest in that area happens to be coincident with what's happening in the US. Let's say in the math area, a PhD in math can teach the teacher, but a PhD cannot teach the students. So I'm wondering if the requirements for teaching, especially coming from the education departments, would preclude that.
So we have different categories. We have graduate teachers, and we have trained graduates, and we have temporary qualified mistresses. So the people who are now training are TQMs, temporary qualified mistress or master. The people who have finished college are trained teachers. The people who have finished college and university are trained graduates. There are people who went and got a degree at UG, so you might have a chemistry degree. You're a graduate, but you are not trained. So promotions and so on get affected by that. We have 93 persons in the system right now who have been teaching for many, many years in their life, and they're not trained teachers. But clearly, they've been producing results. So we're going to do a short course where we could have those teachers
May I go back now?
earn their
It's raining?
qualification as trained teachers, um, And once we do that, they'd be now trained graduates. So we're just trying to make sure these little gaps that are existing, that were existing, these anomalies, that we fix those.
Yeah, that's amazing. Uh, when I went into high school teaching, I graduated from the high school and went back and I taught math, chemistry, physics, biology, and Spanish. So the landscape has changed. Can a high school teach graduate go back into the high school and teach?
Yes, yes, we do that now too. Because when I
Okay.
was at school, like you, when I was at school, I had my prefects, all my third form science teachers, chemistry, physics, all those were persons who had just finished A levels at the time.
What's the age limit for teaching? Up to how many years you can work? 50, 55, 60,
55, 55, and then there's
55.
one where you can retire after 33 and one third. So if you
Mm,
make 33 and one third years before you're 55,
mm,
you can actually come off
yeah.
early.
Right. Mm,
Bye.
yeah. All right. Let's have Ganga. You have Mahendra. You have another point to make
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
Mr. Manichan. It's very interesting about your investment and vision for teachers because I'm a faculty here in the US. I can tell you the challenges we face. But with respect to the vice president announcement a few days with respect to universal education being free, is it going to be around specific degrees or programs? Can you shed light on
Um, the promise was that the University of Guyana would be free, and that the people who have incurred debts already and are on loans, we would find a pathway for them. And we have met and are really committed to honoring all our promises. So that would be for the persons who attend the University of Guyana. Of course, we also have to be a little sensible about what we're doing. If we can't, we have to train persons who can meet the needs of Guyana now and Guyana tomorrow. And so we're going to need tons of engineers. We're going to need medical personnel. We're going to need doctors. Will we need as many social workers? Will we need as many persons in the social sciences? It's a question we'll have to answer, because we also want to make sure people can benefit from their training as far as income goes. And so at this point, the promise was to make the University of Guyana free for
Mm,
everyone. I
mm.
think we will have to have some kind of reconciliation about, just like every university does, about what numbers we take in at which courses.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more follow up very quickly. You spoke so eloquently about the investment in technology and the discontinuation of the one laptop program, which makes sense. Most households would have a laptop. Is there any plans or exploration of subsidizing the cost for internet for these households that maybe have students or teachers that they can have a stipend or some sort of a grant that allows them to supplement the cost for internet services?
So the idea and the aim is to make internet accessible and available to as many households as we can. Within a couple of weeks of entering office, we passed laws to remove the monopoly from GT&T for telecommunication services. And so we liberalized that entire sector. Now, what is likely to happen and what we wanted to happen was that more providers come in and provide more reliable and cheaper service. And once that starts happening, like competition everywhere else that drives the market, we should see more persons being able to access, and more households and families being able to access the internet. We know that the state will have a responsibility in certain communities, like the hinterland communities, where it might not be feasible for companies to go in given the distance and the small number of people in the communities. And so far, we have been meeting that need by doing hubs from the government. and the government standing the cost of those hubs. So while defined, nobody has said, well, X number of persons will get internet by X date. These are all measures that were taken with the intent that we make internet and the benefits of the internet um, accessible to more Guyanese and a bigger spread, wider income bracket, and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the school welfare. I think the school welfare officer plays a very key role in the education system, promoting stability and inquire into difficulties. Do you have in each region welfare officers, and how many?
So we have welfare officers in every region. They're actually regional employees, not Ministry of Education employees. But we are also going to shortly have, we've begun already, to have in every high school to begin with, staff dedicated to guidance and counseling. We don't
Yeah,
have that yet. The
I
country
think
has
that
never had. Yeah, it's hugely
that is
important.
very important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Our,
And we
I I want you to talk a little about the achievements or whatever you call it in terms of your CSC, CAPE, and NGSA, the results for the past 2 years.
Right. So CXC and CAPE, CXC is the fifth form level where you exit and it's an international exam. It's actually written across the Caribbean and it's accepted by universities across the world. CAPE has replaced A levels. So it's the sixth form exams. And again, accepted by universities as associate degrees across the world and various renowned universities also. When this batch that just wrote CXC and CAPE, when this batch was in fourth form, we came into office. So the syllabus to write that exam starts in fourth form. It's a 2 year syllabus, fourth and fifth, or grades 10 and 11. And Guyana was one of the first countries. We came into office in August. We opened schools for that cohort. We didn't open for the whole country, but for that cohort, we opened schools in November of that year. So they had a full 2 years in the classroom, whereas their counterparts across the Caribbean and in many other places in the world did not have face to face education. And we saw that. We saw that pay off because many of those children would not have had access to education otherwise. And the quality of education that was being delivered online was very, very different from the tried and tested face to face. The opposition at the time had heavily opposed going back into school and was encouraging people based on an emotive uh, appeal not to send their children to school. But Guyanese, by and far, we left people with a choice. We're opening the schools, but you don't have to come. And the majority of children went back out. And you are seeing even now, which is why the guidance and counseling officers are so important to us. You're seeing the effects of school closure on behavioral patterns and attitudes and all kinds of other things that are really affecting teaching and learning. Um, but we topped the Caribbean region, the entire region overall. So we had the most outstanding student. This is a student from Region 3, Atish Tessina, right? And then we also had the best science student, a girl named Sheridan Dial from Queen's College. The best business student, Saskia Twahir, again from Queen's College. Um, the best overall, oh, sorry, Yatishta was the best overall Cape student. The best overall student for CSEC was from Anna Regina on the Essequibo coast, a boy named Utam Hiralal. And then we had the best TVET student, the best agricultural science student from Diamond Secondary, um, the best, I said business already. So we had humanities, the best humanities student. So out of the 7 awards that CXC offers, we copped 4. I think we missed the best storytelling, best region, best art, visual arts, and something else. But we're going after those soon too. And we also had the best Cape student. That was the girl from Region 3. And we also had, she was also the best science student at the A level, the Cape level.
Are you doing better in the science and science subjects and English in particular? Physics, chemistry.
If what?
If you're doing better, if the students are doing better in physics, chemistry, English in particular.
Yeah, so we have more students doing the science subjects, and we're seeing a better performance. Now we can't put a lab in every school, so we can't. Not that we can't, but it takes time to do that. So we have trained teachers in the hinterland communities, for example, which don't have and traditionally have not had labs, to use microscience kits. So where you use 5 ml of something to mix with another 4 ml of something, we can use X number of drops to replace that. And so we see, because of that injection of microscience kits in schools across the country, we're seeing more persons entering in the sciences. Um, we're also doing far better in English language than we've done before, and in all at all levels, NGSA, CAPE, and CSEC. If you look at the NGSA results this year, you'll see that there was a really nice spread. We had 3 students topping for the first place, best student. One was from Georgetown, that's a private school, and then one from the East Coast, from Annandale Primary, and one from Cumberland Primary, I think, in Kanji, in Region 6. So very nice. So when you expose children in this grade 6 that we just had, we gave to every single student all the textbooks they need. The same textbooks the private schools are using, we gave to all the public school children. We gave them access, because we printed and gave it to them, all the past papers. We retrained the teachers on what we wanted them to teach up to what level, etc. And so we saw public schools doing far better than we've seen for a long, long time. So the investments made during COVID, investments made while we were still struggling with what to do as a world, we saw those pay off this year. And we saw how specific intervention and having an interest in making sure our children get the best they can get in whatever circumstances will always produce results. And so we expect this to get even better.
Thank you, Mahendra.
Uh, yes, Minister Manickchand, given all of the investment and focus on the formal sort of education sector, and Guyana on this verge of major transformation in the infrastructure and development, is there also plans afoot for vocational education and training that the government is investing in?
Absolutely. So 2 things. The Vice President, President, and Prime Minister just had a session. It might still be ongoing at State House, the President's official residence, with the private sector, consulting on what they might want to see for the budget that should shortly be laid in the National Assembly. And some of what came out from that, we're kind of into virtually. Some of what came out from that meeting is the shortages of the types of persons required at the level of, well, for the private sector to have the kind of workforce they want. We have built and are expanding TVET education so that we can have a larger number of persons trained in skills that are relevant. So not just trained in skills that are relevant. That effort should also see us retaining more children in the school system. So far, we have predominantly, I mean, we had some variations, but predominantly we have looked for the strict traditional academic performance in high school. So maths, English, social studies, science, biochemistry, etc. We have not catered to the student who says, "Okay, I don't want to be a doctor. I'd like to be a mason. And I want to start that from Form 3." So I don't want to drop out and have to go to work in somebody's workshop. I want you to train me to do this. And so we have TVET centers across the country, regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, and PICs, which are practical instruction centers. And we're really trying to focus now on how we can offer at all schools a strong academic program and a strong skills training program that continues in the various TVET centers, whether as institutions or centers. And that's currently something we're looking at. We expect that that's going to show significant results in the number of children we're able to retain in high school shortly.
Follow up? Any follow
I think that's a sufficient answer. I'm
up?
happy that
Okay.
you focus.
Um, Dr. Ganga,
Yes, I'm interested in finding out the role of the old Guyana Technical Institute, the types of education and the certificates that graduates could have.
So, you know, there was once only the GTI, only the Guyana Technical Institute, and they had one in New Amsterdam. We have since put one at Lenora, one at Maiconi, um, Region 10, Region 2, just to try to make sure Region 6 has not only in New Amsterdam but at Quarantine, to try to offer more, a wider cross section of persons this kind of education. In places like Regions 1 and 7 and 9, we have practical instruction centers, which is not the full institute, but a mini version, well equipped mini version of that full institute. The certification that comes out of there, and we're also starting in high schools. Well, we've begun already, expanding in high schools, CVQ qualification, where across the region, well, across the world actually, we would be able to use certification in these areas um, to get jobs and employment, and they would be recognized. To be able to be CVQ qualified, schools or institutions, wherever we're having those, have to have a certain standard. And so it's the Caribbean region that sends in people to CARICOM, that sends in people to make sure we are up to standard before a place is certified CVQ capable. And so the effort is to offer a higher standard of training or technical vocational education in more facilities at more places to more people um, within a very short period. And so you're going to see high schools. We already have some high schools on board who are CBQ qualified and eligible. And you're going to see institutions that offer more than um, certificate programs that you're talking about.
follow up. Dr. Ganga, you have a follow up?
I was looking at the education management assessment in terms of resources. I think you commented on that at the beginning with the buildings and the capacity, the number of places, and so on. But the curriculum and the output from the educational pipelines needs to be assessed so that you can justify making internal changes and other targeted changes within the educational system. So, what about assessment?
You're talking about assessment of officers or of the school population?
Did you ask a question?
Yeah, I was wondering assessment of school population or officers, student or
Well, there's the resources. That's overall institutional assessment, and then there's the teaching assessment. We
so
had some
something.
issues at UG. Students were complaining this and that. So I think assessment in places like UG should be supported fully.
Yeah, so we have not had in the country the so far licensing of teachers or any kind of board that, or continuing education that is mandated to the teaching service. We have to change that. Teaching is a very noble profession. Um, it requires the best of the person offering that service, and it requires frequent upgrading. In other professions, in medicine, you have to have, I think it's six, I don't know if they've changed that, but six, a doctor has to attend six continuing medical education courses per year before they could get relicensed the following year. If they don't have a license, they can't practice. Teaching is actually reaching more persons and could damage far more persons than medicine. And so we are going to be moving towards licensing teachers and expecting standards from this profession that by and far has persons who give their life to it. And then you have the one or two delinquents who don't and give a bad name to the profession. So, in terms of teaching, you'll have more of that kind of assessment. From the level of the ministry, we have started a more robust monitoring and evaluation through the inspectorate unit. The person heading that was the current chief education officer. So he has a deep interest in making sure the work he started there a year and a half ago continues, and even develops better. And that is to make sure that systems across the country, in schools, amongst teachers, amongst education officers, are working, and can change with time, and policies that are put out centrally are implemented. So you'll have a better M&E going forward. Um, what is needed is really very strict, um, every school being monitored to deliver what we want, especially with some of the changes we'll be making, because change always comes with some resistance, sometimes deliberately and sometimes simply because people don't know how to implement the change we are seeing from a different level. And so that will be, and that is one of the big focuses of the ministry right now, to try to figure out how we can effectively monitor what goes on in every school, even as we are decentralized, to make sure that equity has meaning in our delivery of education.
Okay, the final question out to you. What do you consider to be your biggest challenge as Minister of Education in the education system?
Along different lines. Procurement is slow because it's not something that is done by the Ministry of Education. So if we want to build a school, for example, the length of time it takes to procure the service to draw the school and then procure the service to get a contractor to build it is really, really lengthy. And so for someone like me who wants to see everything done today, it gets a little frustrating. Um, and procurement, so just to be clear, is done by the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, which is mandated by law. So we don't get to choose who builds a school and who is awarded a contract. That happens according to legal principles by an independent body somewhere else, based in the Ministry of Finance. So that's one challenge. The second one is getting persons who are well intentioned, decent human beings, um, and otherwise, good people, to change with the times that we currently have. So to say you can't have a cell phone in the school, or you shouldn't send a child home for having a hairstyle you don't agree with, or for not having the right color socks, and to have people understand it's people who, like I said, good people, so they're not bad people, who understand that if you send this child home for something like this, you probably will lose that kid for a long time to education, because there's so many other distractions in the world now. That sort of change is coming too slowly, and that I find very challenging. We should not be putting notes on the board anymore when we could send it through a device. We shouldn't be. Um, we just have to change with the times, and sometimes it's very comfortable for people to do what they grew up doing and what they started doing when they were teaching and drop two lashes on this child to get them to work. That's just not perhaps the most prudent way right now. And so getting that change across systems is very, very hard. And like I said, it's not hard for me when I'm dealing with someone who just resists me and change because they want to. When it becomes hard, it's these people are otherwise good people who want to do well, and we just have a difference of opinion about how we get to that well. Um, and perhaps a little bit less informed about what are the modern approaches now and why they're beneficial. So change, really, getting change in the system is challenging.
Mhm. All right, okay. Professor Mahendra, your final comment, and
Well,
then
I Minister said it well. It's the mindset of the individuals in the sector. So that's a challenge globally. I think it's something that
Yeah.
it will take time, but I think Minister, it's been a great opportunity to discuss these topics with you, and I want to congratulate you, and also um, ask you to continue the great work you're doing.
No, Thais, I'm available anytime to come here to
yeah,
talk to you.
Dr. Ganga.
Yes, I think our minister has a great challenge in a multidisciplinary environment. I was challenged with my 6 courses to teach, but you have the whole system. So that must be formidable. And we thank you for your work, which is outstanding in Guyana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ganga. And now back to our host, Shamiza. I think you have a few questions from our audience for the
I do.
minister.
I do, but first, the quote for tonight that we started the show off was, "The world hates change, yet it is the only thing that has brought progress." I know, Minister, that quote probably has a whole lot of meaning to you right now. I'm sorry, you're mute. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, the sorry, you had a question.
No,
Oh,
I
it's about
read the
change.
quote that I
Yeah,
had today.
yeah. Generally, people are uncomfortable with change. I understand that. So it takes. I am invested in and committed to explaining to persons why any particular change we want to make is good. School to school, teacher to teacher, and I think I've seen how that works. It works when people understand what you're doing. You just don't hand down an edict from the top.
Hmm.
So I'm committed to whatever change it is we want to do, to pursuing it to make sure it's effective.
Yeah.
Um, where we have resistance, we'll just have to work around the resistance. But yes.
Now, here is a question from one of our viewers, Kumar Mahabir. He says, "Does the PPP government have plans to pay teachers of private religious schools, as in the case of Trinidad?"
So we're currently examining how we can support private schools. Almost immediately upon the first budget that we came in with, one of the measures um, we passed and implemented, was to remove tax from private schools. So private schools are not paying corporate tax, and we support in very many different ways, including every training we have and every. So we're currently training on um, reviewing and reforming the curriculum. All private schools will access that training. We have not yet discussed the measure you talk about, which is to pay private schools from the national budget. But we are very sure that the private schools are helping us with space issues and taking off a burden with a couple thousand children that they educate. We recently began to give private schools all the benefits public school children are getting, such as cash grants and so on. But no, we don't yet have it in our plan to pay private school teachers.
Thank you. Our next question is, with the high cost of living and the rise in cost of living, does your ministry has any plans in place to change the monthly teachers' payment salary to biweekly?
No, we haven't had that request.
You haven't? Okay.
No, we haven't had that
And
request.
these,
The country pays public servants monthly. Um, it'd be interesting if people want bi-weekly because it's a very cumbersome thing. So I'm not sure, but I haven't seen that request.
okay. There are a couple of statements that was made, and I will take this one from January Nicholas. He says, Minister, good evening. I understand that you have a lot to undertake, but I've sent you numerous messages regarding your support for a couple of schools that myself and members of Safari for Hope organization visited. We donated laptops and listened to the headmistress, teachers, and students' concerns. And one of the requests was sports gear, soccer in particular, is needed at those schools. It was very disappointing. You, not one, I'm suggesting anyone from your ministry, has reached out back to this gentleman in regards to what he requested.
I'd be happy to get the information. We have an allied arts department, and like I said earlier in the program, one of the things we want to do, so this kind of collaboration would be very useful, very welcome, is to make sure every student who exits secondary school has exposure to at least one sport. It would be different sports at different places. So, place might have a table tennis, school might have a table tennis table because we just had a collaboration with the Chinese to put table tennis tables in schools. Or there may be some place with a cricket pitch where another place doesn't have a cricket pitch. So, cricket could be the sport there. Or in the hinterland space for football. We have collaborated with the West Indies Cricket Board to introduce kiddie cricket to many schools, primary schools, as well as FIFA to introduce football to schools across the country. So any kind of collaboration is welcome. I'm not sure uh, who the gentleman got onto and why he didn't have a response, but I would apologize even without knowing who it was because I keep saying to staff that even if our answer is no, we must respond, and we must be polite and accessible to people. So perhaps Shamiza, if you send me, because you have my number, his information, we could get on to him to see where we could collaborate and how.
Absolutely. Kapsamaru says, Honorable Minister, outdoor and indoor sports and activities are of paramount importance to students' growth and development. With heavy rainfalls in Guyana, students cannot do outdoor sports or activities. Does the government or ministry ever consider if building extension with indoor sports facilities for gym, volleyball, tennis, basketball to schools where students can participate in their growth and development?
Yeah. I figure at some point we'll have to look at what our sporting facilities are, but we in the schools, and I should specify in the schools. In many places, we have access to community centers, and so it's not only within the school. Now, weather is a problem across the world, and how we navigate weather patterns would be problematic anywhere in the world. The access to sporting facilities here might have been trumped by access to actual educational institutions. So as we build out our universal secondary, universal nursery, we already have universal primary, more will be looked at. We have been known in Guyana for producing not only high academic students, but students who are well rounded. So when our students go to universities in North America and Europe and Asia and so on, they actually shine in a major way because um, there's exposure to more than just academic pursuits. So I think for sure there's going to be, like I said earlier in the program, not just because of your question, that we want students exposed to more than just academia, but how we do that and how universally we do that is what we're examining right now.
Perfect. Thank you. And we will love to have your closing remarks before you leave us tonight.
Yes, so I'm very glad to have been able to come on. Like I said, I'm available anytime you or your viewers would like to ask us questions. We believe ourselves to be wholly accountable, and just servants of people who are looking to us for service. I don't see education as anything more than us providing a service. And um, we are trying to reorient the persons who serve to understand that that's our duty. That's what we're doing. Our aim is to make sure, as far as we can, we deliver the same quality, a high quality of education across Guyana. That comes with serious challenges because of geographic disparities and because of poverty disparities that happened for centuries before us. But we are committed to doing that. We welcome any kind of collaboration that sees us pursuing and actually manifesting the promises we made, not only in the manifesto we had when we were running up to election, but also in the 5-year strategic plan, which was based on those manifesto promises, as well as programs that had already started in the ministry. So at any point, we'd be glad to hear and have input from any of you or any of your viewers. And usually available very easily. We don't have any formality to get to me, Dr. Tara, and you would know that I'm available on WhatsApp. You don't actually have to write the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to make contact with us at the Ministry of Education.
I
No, I know.
appreciate that. And we appreciate everything that you do. We see your work every day. We turn to social media and the news. We see the work of you and what you do for our
Well,
country. And we thank you for that.
if I can
But
add something before you complete there, the Education Ministry was given the largest budget in the country. Um, that tells you the emphasis that the government is placing on education as a vehicle for the social economic transformation of the country. So into the minister's hand, the burden of the nation spins on your shoulder. And I know you're taking that very seriously because um, it's a good thing you
thank you,
have some
Dr. Tara.
relief because the gold scholarship is being managed by a separate group attached to the ministry.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say. Back to you, Shamiz. Sorry about that.
No worries. With that said, I would like to thank our viewers tonight for their time being here with us. I'd like to thank our panel and Dr. Tara for being here. And to you, Minister, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Until next time, this is the Guyana Dialogue, and I'm your hostess, Shamiza Ali. Good evening,
Thank you very
everyone.
much, Melissa. Continue to shine.
Yeah, thank you and good night too.
Thank you,
Thank
panelists,
you. Thank
Mahindra,
you.
Dr. Ganga, Professor Mahindra, and Shamiza, and our man in the background, the technical operator, Asif Ali.